So the more I learn and read about artificial intelligence, automation and the rise of robotics, the more I get excited about where we are heading for the future. But I do worry about the future, and the more I understand what is heading our way, the more I realise that China is best placed to win the war for the future. When all of the innovation collides with the working population, and I do believe China is well placed. Now, before you kick off on me here, there is no actual winning in this war of technology. In fact, I don't even think of it as a war, it's just progress. Progress on steroids for a fact, but there is no end in sight, so no winning. Winning implies an ending. There is no end. There will be no end to this speeding up of advanced progress. What I do position when I say China is best placed to win is that I believe China is best placed to be able to absorb the onslaught in technology and the advancements of technology that we are seeing now and we will be seeing in the future. And I do believe they will be able to spread the gains and the losses that will impact on the workforce much more evenly than, say, America. China will approach it as a rising tide lifts all boats, whereas other countries will be more in a place of every man for themselves. Why do I say that? Well, you're talking about a hard-nosed, every man for themselves capitalistic society like America versus the centralised planning and long-term organisation of a socialist society such as China. One society is in it for pure hard profit, while the other is in it for the well-being of their people, the population. Two different mindsets, but if you pause and think it through, then I fear you might just side with my thoughts here. And by the way, I would not include Europe and the UK in my overall thinking because they are so far behind. Their initial problem is the lack of investment, debt, and the high cost of energy, which is a problem that they walked right into. That's their problem, they should own it. And the lack of future-facing large tech companies in Europe, non-existent. There is a nice short read on the problems facing Europe, the Europe tech sector, and I'll leave a link up here somewhere. I'll put it in the comment box below. In reality, Europe and the UK is already in dire straits and racking up huge problems. And when that new technology shift takes place, they will have mountains to climb when it comes to how they support and what support they can offer their general workforce, and the impact will be even more social unrest compounded again by that challenge around immigration. China's centralised planning is already in full throw, and they are already focused on investing heavily on integrating AI, automation and robotics. I've seen it for myself. But they're also directing investment into programs that will minimise job losses and support the workforce to transition into other sectors through education, retraining and re-equipping, retooling factories and shifting their economic model to expand beyond their borders into other countries and being more a respectful global trader while opening new developing markets. The factories in China may well build the future robots, but they will also put them to work. And I seen that when I was living in China. Now, you take that reality and bundle that up with a society that has a welfare safety net and a socialised healthcare system, along with the fact that most people in China actually have a house, a home. Over 90% of the population in China own their own home. Incredible. And President Xi Jinping said houses are for living, not for speculation, which makes sense. Then I would say, if you put all that together, that China is well placed to balance out the impact of these future technologies that will land on the workforce. And yes, China faces huge problems like every country, but my guess is that the leadership sees them coming and they are embracing the technology to help them reduce the blows such as shifts in demographics. They have tight border controls and they can protect jobs, and they have the ability to migrate their own population to where the work is. Aging population is another thing. Robot helpers and improved medical care should lessen that blow. Energy, they're investing in all kinds of new and old and emerging sources of energy. Massive investment for China. The brain power need for the future, the importance put on education by the government and the people in China, I think should answer some of that. And to put a cherry on all of this icing, China has a society that leans into what they call common prosperity, which essentially will shift some of the massive profits and gains made by industries to other areas of society. This is a bit like taxing the wealthy, but it's all done for the common good and the companies get it. I mentioned before the best way to try to understand China, and trust me, that is a lifelong journey just to scratch the surface, but it is said that in China the government controls the capital, while in the West the capital controls the government. Now, I do not have too much skin in the game as I am nearing the end of my working life, but I do care about the future for my kids and for the future of society, because we are already seeing how the Western societies are pulling themselves apart. And that is before there are massive shifts in technology that will absolutely chunk away at the workforce and in turn impact more on how people live together under these immense pressures. We always hear about the GDP and the growth when it comes to the USA, but I am beginning to kind of see through that, because it is all built on debt, raised pricing, and the shifting of money through what I could describe as pyramid schemes. When I look closer at America, I'm seeing a house of cards, which I do not want to see collapse, because that will affect us all. But I just struggle to see how it can be avoided unless they change their economic model. Now, I do believe that President Trump is trying to do just that, but I fear that the model he is chasing is the wrong approach, and he will end up exacerbating the problem. In America, the market-driven forces is obviously a decentralized model where private companies prioritize their profits without care for society. Their focus is often on their shareholders, and this can result in large job losses without care and without coordination of national programs and the funds through taxation to support the re-education, retooling and reskilling of the workforce. Then all of this will impact on the economic distribution and the well-being of the population in the States. This kind of is similar to what we've seen when America deindustrialized in the 70s and 80s. There was a massive amount of layoffs and there was no support or joined up approach from government or states to reduce the impact as the Rust Belt rusted. And I've read that much of the stresses we see in America now have their roots in that very issue. Now, say we go through this again, but with AI, automation and robotics, and it begins to hollow out the workforce as we know it today, and there is no socialised healthcare, no welfare safety net, and no houses for all mindset, in a society that has 440 million guns and a population of 350 million people, then it could all go from a very stressful society to a very dangerous place in a flash. I really hope that does not happen. I've got friends and family in the US, so definitely don't want to see that happen. But maybe that is why the USA government is investing heavily in sending the military into the cities in America to protect the people, because they see what's coming. Now look, I might be wrong with all that I've said here, but at least I'm exploring and trying to see around corners by lifting my head out of my social media feed and looking around. You might have other ideas and thoughts, and I'm always keen to learn. So please drop any comments into the box below and I will respond. We can discuss. I do honestly like learning from others, and I would love to be proved wrong. Anyway, I want to get back to reading my book. Good book this. Peace out. Take care.